I consult a few producers and I say, you spend all this money, if you just, it takes money to make money. And so yes, you're getting deeper in debt, but it's like a better way to get out of debt, or maybe a way, period. Because if nobody knows it's out there, it really doesn't exist.
There's a book that came out a couple of years ago. I think it was by a guy named Epstein or something. It's Hollywood, 101 or Hollywood 2.0 or whatever.
Not Jeffrey.
And they say that you should raise an equal amount of money for marketing and promotion than the production budget. And so many people think that when you finish a feature film, you're sliding into home plate. And I think you're just barely rounding second. It's the marketing and all of that is utterly critical. And not in the Woody Allen sense of sliding home, because I can read this guy's mind. But it really is crucial to not just create an orphan.
The simple thing we say is you should be making and marketing from day one. Making and marketing from day one. You can spend a lot more time or a lot more of your energy making it, okay, at first, and later on you'll be spending more time marketing it, but the marketing has to be there. It's got to be like a parallel track that you lay down as soon as you start thinking about making a movie.
And again, to tie in a real practical example, we just launched the trailer for I Still Believe, and the filmmakers are thinking about marketing even when they're making casting decisions. So I try not to ruin the artistic process. I try to inform it, like, hey, if you want to put walnuts in your sandwich, that's fine, but 17% of people are allergic to them and 60% of people think that's disgusting, but it's your call. It's not, so I just try to inform them, and so they are very intentionally going after a younger audience with that movie. And so we cast that movie with Instagram here at Stars. Like the gal, it has got 8 million followers on Instagram, and the lead has 16 million followers. And that was a marketing decision. And guess what? Their chemistry is unreal. It's going to be one of the best faith movies ever done. But it was made from a marketing decision. Was made that if we're going for a young audience, we need to think about this a lot differently.
And just in case you can't get the big social media influencer, because that is pretty obvious, not that it's not genius, of course, but it is pretty obvious that you want the person with the biggest social media following, and everybody's going to be going for that, right? Okay, but just in case you can't get that person, going back to the causes, the messages, the platforms, thinking about that politician, it's like, what are the angles in your story, in your movie, that will relate to certain pockets of people in a special, deeper way? And based upon that deeper connection, start identifying, okay, who are those groups of people? Are there groups, are there associations, organizations, websites, social media pages around that group of people? And invite those entities in early on. Get them to the set, cast one of them, ask them to be an investor, figure out some kind of a co-promotion partnership with them, because when your baby's born, all of those entities now are going to be rallying for that child, feeling like it's their child too.
And it's hard to do. I mean, or it can be. With my movie Unbridled, we tried very hard to connect with the equine therapy folks, and it's just, I mean, these are people that are largely volunteer-based, and it's a decent size market, and it's a good niche, but it proved pretty difficult to do.
Yeah, and it comes to influencers, and I can say this because I didn't work on it, so a little Hollywood nerd here. When it comes to influencers, it's really important that their business is movies. Like, when we cast KJ Apa for the lead of I Still Believe, like, he was starting to do movies, and he was a TV star, right? And Johnny, you're trying to get organizations that have nothing to do with movies. They just like the cause, so it's a hard articulation. So there's a movie that opened last week that I know for a fact. They wired the Kardashians $1 million for a single Instagram post. And if you look at that post, it's right in the middle of, fly on a cake, here's the rest of my nachos, like, and they were talking about fancy nachos, the Kardashians have fancy nachos. But like, that has nothing to do with people wanting to go see a movie, right? Like, that has nothing to do with it. They thought that they're a tastemaker, and I'm like, people, you can tell, you go look at someone's, oh, look, and then there's an ad in the middle of it. I mean, we all know that. We feel it. It's kind of like, if you're at one of those Christian conferences and you can tell the offering's coming, like, oh, I'm going to the bathroom, so you can tell. Like, always sound like the music's playing, you just see it coming, So if you're going to work with influencers, like, make them be a part of the project. Like Paul said, make them feel ownership of it, because, contractually, I can't make KJ Apple post all this stuff. A kid at his level probably is getting six figures for every post. Well, I can't pay for that, right? I got to make him love it so much that everything he sees, he goes, I'm adding that to my Instagram story, right? So that's important too. And it's really important for these distributors to look and see what traction you have before they get involved.
So it was very interesting what you said. They have to be concerned or involved with movies, but marketing to special interests who are going to buy the DVD, that's a different story, right? I mean, we were talking about those people getting involved on the front end, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Distribution is a wild thing. We're talking mainly about digital right now. But, Faith Market still sells DVDs, right? They still sell DVDs. If you go look at the top DVDs on Amazon right now, I promise there's 2 or 3 Faith ones. Some of in like stuff like I Can Only Imagine was in the top 10 or 20 for 6 months. Same thing with books. You go look at someone like Rachel Hollis, who's been the number one faith book for, between the 2 books she has, a year and a half every single day. So we're still consuming hard goods, but that has an end. Right, like the number. You just go look. The number of DVD players bought. When it breaks, you're done. Right, you're not buying it
Until the AI robots take over, and then we'll be.
That's the next panel. Skynet. What we need to do.
So, Michael, did you have any luck connecting with interest groups?
I hired 2 PR firms, and one of them basically handled the Catholics, and the other one evangelicals. And, oh gosh, they don't talk to each other. I mean, I just did a 2-year project. Well, now it's like 6 years ago, so in my mind, if you get older, it just was last week. But for Focus on the Family, and if a guy shows up in a Roman collar, they break out in hives up in Colorado Springs. Yet 30% of their supporters and viewers and subscribers or whatever are Roman Catholic. So anyway, I did that, and I cast my bread on the waters, and I had a particularly bad marketing error that happened. I'm not going to cry here up front, but I had sole right to approve every image associated with the film, and then downstream from me, every actor had the same right to approve any image, although I got 100% approval because we took the images from the digital print. But still, when they released it, my IT guy called me at midnight when it went live on Amazon, and he said, "Are you driving?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Pull over." And they had switched the image. My digital distributor switched the image, and it was, to put it kindly, it was demonic and from the pit of hell. And so we had to recover from that. So a lot of my early PR efforts did not pay off. In fact, even some of my film crew people looked at it, and investors said, "That's not the film you did. That's not the film that," so we really had to fight that. And to change that out of Amazon, I mean, some people could make a phone call, maybe get it done in a day. It took me 5 months to build an image. And it was really, well, if you believe in heaven and hell, darkness and light, and principalities and powers and all that, you can understand. But it really was a major hurdle. So we just go on with "No weapon formed against me shall prosper." I don't know if that's one of the verses you've ever done. You should. And anyway, so we have gradually crawled out of that morass and are making money. But the yeah, well, that's it for now.
So Paul, you got 5 Catholics against 3 Presbyterians. Who wins?
The Jew.
Hollywood, all right.
There you go, folks. You heard it here first. So, talk a little bit about marketing to, Catholics versus Presbyterians, evangelicals. What's the deal with all that?
Well, again, it goes back to the political campaign. When you're standing in front of a Hispanic female audience, you're speaking their language, appealing to their way of thinking, their agendas, whatever. And when you're speaking to the white, male worker, it's just different parlance. So you do need people who can speak whatever it is, speak Catholic, speak evangelical, speak African American, whatever that target is. That's important.
Yeah, I think, again, I like to use practical examples because I think it's easier to grasp conceptually. So we worked on the movie Hacksaw Ridge. We had a very specific campaign for Seventh-day Adventists. So what I do with my guys is we practice what I call pathological empathy. So we put our place, we try to go into the place of the audience that we want. And what we know, the Sabbath is on a Saturday, right? So we're probably not going to do real well with Seventh-day Adventists. So we didn't run our ads on Saturdays. We made sure first off, I always identify a core truth, and I will never go off of that. So I'm not going to lie to anybody. What's the core truth? What are the spokes from that truth that may be different when I talk to you than when I talk to you than when I talk to you? Because if you don't have the core truth, the audience will just fall apart, right? Because as soon as they find, hey, I heard this is the best movie ever, and that guy was in it for 10 seconds, or that scene in the trailer wasn't even the movie, they figure that stuff out. So in Hacksaw Ridge, we had a very specific Seventh-day Adventist campaign. Because what we found was the story of Desmond Doss was ubiquitous. Like, every Seventh-day Adventist knew the story. So we put on an ad that just went to Seventh-day Adventists. Ran it Sunday through Friday, and then turned it off. And it was an advertisement that went viral. For every dollar we spent, we saw $10 of reach. And it's because it's Paul Lauer's model of whispering to the head of the table and then walking away, then that person at the table tells everybody. And all we did is transfer that into it, and it was just pathological empathy. Like, we're not going to run ads on, because if you're really a Seventh-day Adventist, you shouldn't be on Facebook on Saturday, right? I didn't know any of this stuff. We learned it, right? And then when we're talking about distribution, we change our empathy from being audience to platform. So if I'm trying to get Netflix to buy the world we make, that's what I'm thinking about. What are the people at Netflix thinking? What do they want to see, right? They want to see that people who love Heartland like it, that people who like the movie Loving. Because Netflix is all about, you just watch something, oh, don't go away, stay. What do I show them? What do I show them? What do I show them? And if you can step in there and say, this is what you can show them, their economy works wildly different. They're no longer asking these questions, well, what did it cost? Who was in it? Da, 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 da. It was like, can I keep this person engaged? The amount of money they pay for something is based rarely on what it cost you to make it. It's what does it mean for their audience to keep them. Another real super practical example is a Christian filmmaker, a guy Chris Dalian was involved in it, did a documentary called Asperger's Are Us, got rejected from every film festival except for South by Southwest, and the Nashville Film Festival, which is really kind of a favorite thing. So it goes to South by Southwest. Because Netflix knows they have a large contingent of families that deal with Asperger's and different varying people on the spectrum, they paid 20 times the production budget for that. There were no other bidders. No other bidders. I don't think Netflix knows how an auction works. I just like, I'll give you that, But they found something that Netflix saw immense value in to their audience. So it's just a way to think when you're making something. Yeah, you need to please the audience, but now when we're talking about digital distribution, there's these middlemen, right, that you have to show your value to them too. So they're the ones with the money.
So, everything I've been reading and learning, and even, learning over at Cannes Film Festival, where, we had 2 films, one ready for sales and one almost finished, Final Frequency and Bridled. It seems like, and just from the sour looks on the distributors' faces, it seems like, not distributors, sales agents, seems like the sales agents are maybe going away, in a way. Would you say that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry for any sales agents here, but it's kind of like realtors. Like, there's way too many of them. Like, I have my house for sale and I unleaper of this stuff, then you should make as much money as you can for now, because that's all going away. Like, we're gonna see, whether it's the blacklist or, you're gonna see almost every one of these outlets is gonna be in the next 2 years submitting ways for anybody to say, here's my content, here's what I want for it. And it's gonna get uploaded, and they're gonna look at it or not look at it, and they're gonna buy it, because sales agent A and sales agent B, this exact project was referenced earlier, one got a $30,000 offer and one got a $300,000 offer, right? Well, what was that about? Like, I hope you talked to the $300,000 guy, right? But ultimately, it's the people who buy it that matter, and they don't like sales agents either. So they're going to set up mechanisms to deal with all that stuff, and they're probably going to be some really interesting things happen. You upload it, there's an audience of your peers that look at it, and then they go decide how much they're willing to pay for it. There's going to be a lot of interesting pricing models for content.
Yeah, and a lot of them may be based on a blockchain kind of a ledger where they, it's more safe for the filmmaker. You can look at exactly what was done with your film, and they can go out of the system, I suppose, but it's, pretty secure as far as the blockchain goes. And then there's Bitcoin, but that's a separate thing. I know of at least 3 people that are starting up these, these new distribution models, which will essentially bypass the studios, bypass distribution. Studios can sign up to do this, but you can go directly to the outlets and get right in there. I know Ash has seen some of that, but Paul, what are you seeing on that side?
I have no idea what you just said. Something about blockchain. There was a blockchain, there was a Rottweiler, I don't know. Ash and I do these panels together, and our main thing is to make each other laugh. So he's made me laugh 4 or 5 times. No, I actually wanted to, I will come to that answer eventually, but I wanted to feed into something that I think Ash was saying, which is, or actually it's an earlier idea, which is, at the end of the day, it still comes down to all of us. Okay, there's going to be various ways to reach us. There's going to be various people standing in between you and me, whether that's a distributor, a studio, a sales rep, whatever it is. But ultimately, I'm a creative with a story, and you're a consumer. And so, what you want to know is, this story that I am passionate and want to tell, how many people want to hear this story? How many people can relate to this Asperger's story? I guarantee Netflix, and you probably know this, they know every term that's being searched, right, by all of us who are looking and surfing around Netflix, looking for a movie about this or that. They've probably seen a bunch of searches for Asperger's. And somebody has a list somewhere going, hey, we need an Asperger's film. There's people searching for this. And yeah, maybe it's a small audience, but a bunch of small audiences add up to Netflix, $140 billion market cap. That's a bunch of small audiences looking for little niche content. So everybody in here has some story that a bunch or a small bunch of people will resonate with. And going back to my earlier comment, as you're making your story, think about who those people are, where are they, how many are there, who represents them, how do I connect with them now as I'm making my film? Because later on, those eyeballs are going to add up to what Ash is talking about. They're going to be likes on the Facebook page. They're going to be shares. And even if they're just a small bunch of them, he gave you examples of small bunches that went from 30K to a 300K value.
So where does Apple go from here? I mean, I've heard they're discontinuing iTunes. Is that true?
Cash?
Yeah.
It's gone?
Yes, as a software, not as a store, but as a software, yeah.
Okay, so they're sowing heavily into Apple TV, and
Yes.
they're going to be another Netflix. Is that what we're going to say?
Let's see, what can I say? So what I can say, if you go back and look at Apple's announcement, the very first icon, the number one icon that you see in the top left is for Up Faith and Family. So and they're a client, full disclosure. So they are not afraid of that space. One thing Apple has not announced, hey, we're coming, we're gonna do streaming. Well, what is it? Yeah, I don't know. What? They have not announced. They have not announced pricing. They have not announced it's gonna be AVOD. The industry thinking is that it's $9.99. They haven't announced if it's gonna be similar to Amazon, which is you pay a fee and then you add on channels, a la carte, right? No one really knows. In Netflix, stat guy, 63% of what's watched on Netflix is content they don't own. The vast majority of that will no longer be on the platform in January of 2021. The last quarter, Netflix had a 6% decrease in minutes watched. Traditional television had, so when I say traditional television, subscribers to television, including virtual subscribers, so that's YouTube TV, PlayStation View, DirecTV Now, had the strongest, the steepest fall ever last quarter. And at the same time, people consume more content than ever. So that means we're getting wildly fragmented. So, not to turn this into a stock lesson, but the nerdier of us are waiting to see what happens. If Netflix starts to fall, Apple may be sitting back. I don't think it's impossible to think that Apple's going to buy Netflix next year. Because that just is the thing that makes the most sense. They have capital, But what does that mean for us? I think it's good. They're looking, all these places are looking for niche audience. I mean, Apple stood on the stage and said, we're going to do, I'm not exactly sure what this means, but soft PG-13 and below. They said, we're not going to make R-rated content. Okay, well that's interesting. That's not bad for this market at all, right? Disney Plus said, well, we're going to do PG-13 and below. There will never be R-rated content. Then we're going to buy Hulu and put all the dirty stuff over there. But that's what I'm saying. But again, it's a great time to be making stuff. And if you were in an earlier panel, I thought Tom Newman said something really interesting. It's like what happened after Passion of the Christ. There was a massive hunger for faith content. There was nothing there. Who was ready? Who had the next one ready? Nobody. Nobody was ready. So the thing is, you got to be ready because there is going to be an arms race for content. Family content is important. If you look at all of the data, what they're saying is co-viewing is what they're calling it. Co-viewing is their number one objective. That just means stuff you can watch together. Number one. They don't care if it's faith or this or that. Stuff you can watch together. That's the number one thing circled on everything. That's why they're saying PG-13 and below. That's why they're saying soft PG-13. I asked one of them, which shall not be named, hey, are you guys, what level of faith are you okay with? Most of them are saying, well, we're fine as long as it's not proselytizing. I'm like, well, you don't get to define that. And then I heard a term that, have you heard this one? Someone says, we're fine with stuff. Anything faith, as long as it's, faith adjacent.
That's the word.
Faith adjacent. I'm like, does that mean like it's near the faith section of Blockbuster? Like it's right there, but not really? I don't even know what that means. But for most of the streamers, they are they will fight. They would all fight. Sony has an output deal. Overcomer out this weekend, super conservative, Southern Baptist movie, good for your family, go watch it. They would fight. There would be a bidding war. absolute bidding war if it wasn't predetermined where it was going.
So Lionsgate is kind of maybe taking the lead in this? Is that what we should
Yeah,
take
I
away
would
from
say-
this? Are they taking the baton away from Sony?
I would say, well, it's hard to say. I mean, Lionsgate, if you look at their biggest movies last couple of years, so their entire systems, remember Lionsgate has Roadside and CBS Films and so 2 years ago, we worked on a movie. It's the only movie I've ever begged to work on was a movie called Wonder. Because I'm like, man, the middle of the country, what's gonna happen is the parents are gonna go watch this movie and they're gonna be like, I gotta bring my kids to this because I want my kids to see this. And that's exactly what happened. The movie made over $130 million. So that's a family movie with a faith adjacent, I guess, element to it. I mean, there's a few times like Julia Roberts has a wine. Oh, there's a few things we have to balance there. I'm like, that's grape juice. It doesn't really say this one. Some people drink out of fancy glasses. I'm who am I to judge?
To the Lutherans
And then,
and the
yes,
rest.
exactly. But then the next year, the number one movie in the entire Lionsgate system, I can only imagine. Right? All right? So guess what happens at Lionsgate? Hey, what are you guys doing for like the next 4 years? It'd be awesome if you could come make movies for us. And Sony, it's very spreadsheety and this, and what Lionsgate has said, like, you want to make biblical epics that are $100 million budgets? Okay, well, let's get there. Let's do it. So, will it happen? I sure hope so. But they need it to work. I mean, go look. It's really interesting. Shows the dichotomy of Hollywood. It was in one of the fish wraps, whatever you call them, one of the Hollywood rags a couple months ago. And Lionsgate said, we're betting really big on Kingdom and Seth Rogen. Oh, who would have thought? I don't know. But and the first Seth Rogen movie bombed for them. So trust me when I tell you, they really, really, really want this to work. And if it works, I'm telling you, we will see a rebirth of the biblical epic because they want to make event movies.
Lionsgate's Christian now, and it's gonna be an interesting ride, and what happens if they really succeed big, what happens if they fail. There goes the faith filmmaker fortunes, perhaps.
We should pray for
You
them.
say?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think everything is iterative and a learning experience. Like, nobody felt good after we released Woodlawn and made a great 5-act faith movie that, barely, but really only really recouped because they rolled the investors into the next movie, which went really big. So I don't ever believe that I believe there's a direction and a plan, and if it fails, I ain't quitting. So.
No, but it gets easier, it gets harder, there's more money chasing the artists, so.
Sure.
It could be really good. So, how much time we got left, you guys? I think we got 25 minutes. Okay, we got time for a couple of questions, and if you want to come over here, we'll get you on the mic. We don't want any yelling out. But is anybody gonna come up?
Sure, John.
So, Paul, do you want to anticipate any questions here?
Blockchain. Just guess.
You will come around to blockchain. I love the blockchain.
No.
You want me to be out of mine?
I'll get to you, mister.
Oh, you have a question? No. I anticipate he has a question.
Very good. Okay, if you'd speak to the camera there and stand right here, that would be great.
So this is for you mostly, Paul. What if it's a faith film or a come alongside faith film? So adjacent. Adjacent. Thank you. Sorry, don't want to start a new term. What in its theatrical release? What's the bottom amount of marketing dollars that you should set aside or plan to spend to get off the ground to actually successfully get it into the theaters? Is there a number that you guys think about?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That is a great question, and Ash and I will have two different answers.
30,000 and 300,000.
Yeah. So there's some kind of industry rule of thumb: $10,000 a screen, $20,000 a screen when you add up all of your media, and PR, and all of that. But rule of thumb, we try to tell people to raise $500,000. We've seen that even the smaller films, and you can certainly do it for less than $500,000. Ash has done that. But even the smaller films, to just cover the basics, your PR campaign, some degree of social media, your materials, building a website, just kind of the basics, you're gonna pretty quickly add up to $500,000. And then from there, everything just scales, right? You go from, hey, we've got one outreach team reaching everybody, to we've got a Hispanic team, an African American team, Catholic team, Seventh-day Adventist team, and everything, not just our outreach, but all of our materials and our advertising and everything is kind of being tailored to each one of those teams. But, yeah. Oh, let me mention, by the way, a lot of the films we work on, like we're working with Warner Brothers right now on an amazing film called Just Mercy, starring Jamie Foxx, Brie Larson, and Michael B. Jordan. It is amazing. You guys look forward to this movie. It's going to open limited December 25th, and then wide on Martin Luther King weekend, January 17th. But anyway, we're just one component of their campaign. They hired us for the faith outreach because there are some faith elements in there. It's faith adjacent. And they like that. They're like, you know what? There's some votes. Like, get that team in there that'll get some of those votes, because that 1 or 2% could mean the difference between getting elected, winning or losing the election. So sometimes we're 50% of the vote. Sometimes we're a couple percent. But either way, we matter. So on a campaign like that, they don't need $500,000 to do a faith campaign. Now, if it's I Can Only Imagine, or just before you worked on Wonder, we did The Shack with Lionsgate. That was kind of their big first foray into the faith community, was The Shack. And I remember having lunch with the head of marketing. We sat down and she said, so, we're going big on this, and we've set aside X number of dollars. I'm not going to tell you the number. And I sat there, I said, Julie, what? That's going big? Let me tell you what a big faith campaign looks like. Because, by the way, what was right after The Passion was Narnia. That was Disney calling us, going, hey, we've got a lion that we think is Jesus. Can you do anything with that? We're like, yeah. Those are all multi-million-dollar campaigns. Any of these big faith films they're rolling out, that's $2, $3, $4, $5 million easily, just in that space. So
Now, is Lionsgate gonna put that kind of money into the P&A for their films?
yeah, that lunch that started with the number she told me, going big, ended with, you need to add a 0 at least. And so it went from hundreds of thousands to millions. So that's where you need to be. Oh, Ash, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, these wide releases over that, it's 8 figures, always. I want to, real quick, let Michael talk about his movie, and because I think that's super encouraging, interesting story to have a movie in, one little region that did really well.
Well, when you're doing a film out of California, the word gets out, and actually I try to dampen the word, because I don't want a huge thing like in Wisconsin. Public Enemies was shooting, and there was a huge Johnny Depp search crew every night from where he was staying, and it was a madhouse with security problems and all that. But I believe the only good PR is when the film at a theater and people have to pay to see it. And I don't know exactly which aspect. I as I was listening to this, I was going back to when I was in post on a film called The Ultimate Gift, and they had almost the opposite come in terms of marketing people, and they hired a very strong, huge PR firm. I don't know what, if this is gonna stream, if it's, what I'm gonna say is libelous or anything like that. I know that, Ash has been very delicate in naming and not naming people, but these people had come off the Live Strong campaign with Lance Armstrong, where everybody's wearing yellow wristbands. That's probably, what, 15 years ago now? But they said, you gotta cut out these certain things out of your film because you're gonna offend these groups. And so it was really more political back then, instead of now reaching the little constituencies or that grow into huge constituencies in mass. We were actually prevented from having certain messages or even names in the film. So that was a bit of a PR nightmare. When the film came out, I said, well, where's the PR, where are the PR people? Well, we ended up not using them. Well, they used their advice, but they didn't use them. So I personally have been through a couple of horror stories. So anyway, I don't know which aspect you wanted me to mention on this latest film, but definitely we're going after exactly what has been spoken of today with, and we still are, it's an ongoing thing with constituencies and familiar territory. And
it got in the theater. I mean, it was in
oh,
theater.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. You got to get through a gatekeeper or two, but an independent can definitely get theatrical. And you still have to bring, you have to produce your DCPs, you have to provide all that, you have to pay off Cinedime or whoever rents the projectors, and you still have to, take a lot of financial responsibility, which is under the category of P&A. But you just have to be prepared for that. And the minute you get an opportunity, you got to be able to walk through it or leap through it like you did.
So, let's keep the responses a little shorter so we can try to get through this lineup, and that'll be the last question if we get there. Okay, come on.
Hi. First of all, Jessica Mercy, I saw a preview of that. Oh my gosh, Brian Stevenson, amazing. Everybody go see it. Okay, I have a two-part question. Well, it's one question, there's a kind of two different sections. It's related. I'll be succinct. So you guys talked about taking marketing to a faith audience in faith-adjacent films. But what about films that are more heavy faith and those crossover into the mainstream audience, like I Can Only Imagine? And part two, I'm getting ready to direct a feature in the winter that is, I think, heavy faith, but the producers who are not believers thinks it's crossover, and we're getting feedback from international people about doing two versions of some of the scenes, one that's God and one that's Jesus. I don't know if that's valid or not. So
Wow.
one is the international market about having an alternate sort of less faith heavy or more faith heavy content, and the other is about crossing over from faith into mainstream. Thank you. Oh,
I can tell you, most movies that try to cross over get hit by a bus on the street. If that's, you either made a faith movie or you didn't. So if you made a big $80 million Blindside movie, great. Paul will do the small campaign, right? But if you made a faith movie that I think this movie can cross over, no, go preach to the choir. Look, Overcomer's gonna make $8-9 million this weekend. They didn't spend 1 second outside of the choir, right? Getting an A+ cinema score, which is going to be a 4.2 multiple, blah blah blah. But if they would have, we think this movie speaks to everyone. A movie that speaks to everyone usually speaks to no one. So if you can't deliver the choir, you can't win. If you make a faith movie, that's where you need to focus. Crossing over happens whenever the choir gets, remember, Jesus had 12 guys that were into it, and everyone knows about it now, right? So that's what you need to do.
They preach to the choir. So next question, please.
Mine's kind of on the same lines. Hi, I'm Kimberly Solomon. I'm a faith-based writer. Kind of the same thing, but from a writer perspective. Is it better to do more of preaching to the choir, like I'm from Alabama, more of the faith, kind of like Overcomer market, or is it better to do a faith-adjacent type of film? Just purely from what you've seen from what buyers want.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the I Still Believe movie it plays, like you saw a rough of it. I mean, it plays like 5 Feet Apart or Fault in Our Stars, and it is overtly preachy, right? You know, it is standing on stage and asking everybody to pray for his dying wife. Like, this is not, you know, but it's also incredibly authentic. So I think, like, even in Woodlawn, there were moments where that we added to the script to appeal to that audience. Wasn't authentic, right? Just didn't connect as deeply as it probably should have. So be authentic. Don't try to do anything.
So we worked on the Bible miniseries with Mark Burnett and Roma Downey, which was on History Channel. Why was it on History Channel?
That's
Because
awesome.
Mark Burnett, who had top shows on pretty much all the major networks at that time, shopped the Bible miniseries as a concept, and they all turned it down. And little History Channel off in the distance was like, we'll take it, we'll take it. History Channel beat, like, massacred in the ratings on the Sunday night that the Bible miniseries aired, killed all the networks. History Channel, okay, outperformed CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, all of them. And then they were like, get me some of that Bible. My point, though, during the marketing campaign, and are we, does anybody watch this? Okay, all right. Edit this part out. Anyway, one day we get a call from History Channel, and we're doing this massive campaign. I mean, honestly, the campaign we did on that TV miniseries was like the campaign we did on The Passion of the Christ. It was like the Passion equivalent, but on TV. And History called us one day. We were talking to marketing folks, and they said, "Can we tone down the God stuff a little?" We're like, have you ever read the Bible? Do you happen to know, like, what's in the Bible? It's actually about God. So we're, like, it is called the Bible. That's what we're... Anyway, I can't remember why I said that. It was something you just said. Oh, about being authentic. About being authentic. Like, they literally, what they were thinking the Bible was like these killer battles, Old Testament blood, and the swords go, yeah, and Samson's like, you know, felling towers and everything, and like there's intrigue, and somebody dies on a cross, and you know, but can you tone the God stuff down a little? So, obviously we didn't tone the God stuff down, and we had 100 million viewers.
Woo!
When, you might enjoy this, when I did the film The Ultimate Gift, there was Abigail Breslin at 9 years old was terminally ill and as a character. And she was in a hospital room, and there was a very lovely large nurse next to her. And then when the protagonist of the film goes into the room and the room is empty, he says to the nurse, "Where's the girl?" And she says, "She's with Jesus." Well, then the next cut was to a statue of Jesus in the chapel of the hospital, and she was in there praying. And the marketing group said, "You got to take that name out. It's an offensive name." So after my approved cut, the producer, lovely man, went in with an assistant editor and took out the word Jesus and put in the word God instead. And so now he goes into the room and says, "Where's the girl?" And the nurse says, "She's with God." And then they cut to a statue of Jesus.
That's even better.
The 2,000-year-old question, was Jesus God?
Yeah.
Sometimes things can work in your favor.
Can I say one other quick thing though about this? Because what you may think we're telling you to do is just always be like right out there with the faith, and that can lead to, unfortunately, like that feeling like, oh no, here it comes, like you were talking about before, here comes the collection. Like the sappy, overdone religiosity. Because that's not authentic either. It feels like you can see it coming, you can hear it coming. There are some people that like it. Ash would probably say, "No, man, that's going to sell tickets." It probably will sell some, but I don't think it really helps our mission overall as fulfilling the Great Commission. Just be authentic. If that's authentically what would happen in that situation, great. If it's over the top and you just wrote it in to get the faith audience, please don't do that.
I was mighty blessed by what you just said.
How's your
Mighty
walk?
blessed.
Hi, my name is Lisa Aguilar, and I have a simple question, I think. If one is a creative type, should one write a novel first, and then if you have the idea for a movie, and then write the script second? What's your advice?
As a marketer, and as we've seen multiple times today referred to, Hollywood in general loves existing IP.
Yes.
So if you can write a novel and get like Miracles from Heaven got made into a big movie, that only sold 30,000 books before the movie, that's a lot of books still. But I think if you can write a story that's good that people will like, you immediately create more interest. I mean, a lot of people forget Iron Man, absolute failed comic book. Men in Black, failed comic book.
Wow.
As far as reaching the masses, but what it did was galvanize a small number of people who really liked it, and it turned out that could scale really big once they put it in a different medium. So I say, write a great story, see if people will read it and like it. Or a graphic novel, yeah.
All right.
Hi, Jamar Dixon, Farm and Dream Studio from McGrath.
Whoop whoop.
Thank you guys for coming, by the way. I have a quicker question, I guess. Since we're talking about we talk about theaters and some of the mediums like Netflix and even like television, and I was thinking as a small production company, would it make more sense to even reach for theater right now, or would it be better or smarter, especially with the market, to try to go forward to more like Netflix, more streaming networks that are coming up, or even still try to get something on like a History Channel or something on that medium? Like what would make more sense?
Yeah, so be responsible with your budget, and you have infinitely more options. There's 2 or 3 great movies that I'm dealing with right now. One of them is nearly at the level of a movie like Hoosiers. Guess what? Hoosiers is not a theatrical movie in 2019. They can't sell it for as much as they've spent making it, but they're gonna have to go bet $10 to $20 million to get it to theaters. So they're trapped, they are orphaned, right? And I won't work on the movie. I'm like, there's just no path. Because instead of being orphaned, it's like working on a hospice campaign, like make the patient comfortable. Sorry, we're just gonna do our best here. It's just really, no, but it's true. Like, it's so many of these movies. So if you are gonna make a movie, you should have your budget be to the point where if Netflix offers you a reasonable amount of money, you can say yes. Because the thing about marketing is I will tell you, on one of the movies I referred to earlier, we spent a total of $5,000 marketing. And Netflix bought it. From that $5,000, they bought it for double the production budget. But there's a ton of other movies that if you start making movies that are $3, $4, $5 million, that they'll only buy for $1 million, then you're trapped. You're really in no man's land. So if you're gonna make a theatrical movie, you better be thinking it's an event. Can you make it an event? Because even if you only spend, the Kendrick Brothers, that movie, the published budget is $5 million, and the P&A is more than double that, right? So just be responsible with your budget and give yourself options. Because what does every filmmaker want to do? What do you want to do? Make your next movie.
I want a Ferrari.
Will you wreck it in your movie?
Yeah, the jump to go theatrical is a huge jump. It's a hyper jump. It's like that thing in Star Wars where they go, okay, hyperspeed. And you need to know. I mean, obviously, if you set out to make a movie for a theatrical release, then that's what you're doing. But really, you don't know until you see your movie. Okay.
One other thing that we haven't talked about, I want to talk about real quick, because this is distribution. So there are actually, there's Fathom, which most people know about. There's Tug. There's a brand new company called My Cinema that is allowing you to be in theaters at $0, zero cost. It's a brand new model. They are a Swiss company that used to make speakers back in the day. They have put technology in about 600 theaters that does not require a DCP or any bribe payment to somebody who owns a projector. And that's a really interesting model. It's not fully developed, but it's your chance to be like, we're gonna be in 600 screens and it will cost no money, and they just share revenue with you. That is something on the horizon that's happening real quick. They're putting out a James Franco movie called Zero Bill, which James Franco, Dave Franco, Will Ferrell, Danny McBride, Seth Rogen, a huge cast is going out through that system.
So, you guys, that's all the time.
It's called My Cinema, that company.
That's all the time we have left today. There are audience favorite ballots on the way out, and you can vote at will call. Please vote for your favorite film. They will win an award for tonight, and at the end of tomorrow night as well at the award ceremony. The next offering is 5:55. We'll have screening block 3, so please show up for that. And please help me thank this amazing panel. It was a lot of fun, and especially love the analogies in the dingo farm and whatever. So thank you. We'll see you back at 5:55.